and thanks for joining the CaFÉ webinar. My name is Justine Chappell, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for CaFÉ. Today, I will be showing you some best practices for using CaFÉ to create online exhibitions. Online or virtual opportunities are much more prevalent on CaFÉ these days, and we want to make sure that if you're hosting an online exhibition or publication or opportunity, that you're not only aware of all the tools available to help you in CaFÉ, but that you also understand some additional considerations you'll need to make if you're posting artwork online. The key items that we'll cover include best practices and tips while setting up the call for entry in CaFÉ, specifically for online exhibitions, gathering the materials to use online, and assembling the online exhibition. I want to start off today by giving some general reminders for online art opportunities. These are here to guide you along as you set up your calls and applications and help ensure that you have the best interest of the artist and yourself at hand. So just to start off, our first tip or reminder is to, be transparent. So artists deserve to know upfront what they are applying for and should be informed throughout the entire process. Provide clear information and expectations. This helps you avoid problems down the road due to miscommunication or lack of clarity. Give artists a valuable opportunity. So even though your exhibition or opportunity is hosted online, we want you to make sure that you make it worthwhile to artists in addition to yourself. So this will help your application numbers and increase engagement. Also, keep your materials organized. The more organized you are, the less likely something will go wrong. And using CaFÉ means you already have a leg up on this because everything is managed in CaFÉ for the call for entry. And then we also just want to make sure that you're practicing internet safety. So especially with online calls, there are some extra things you need to consider when putting other people's artwork online. We'll touch on this towards the end of the webinar. So all of these are just things to consider as you create your online exhibition and remember as you set up your call in CaFÉ. We just want to make sure you're set up for success, and holding these general tenets will simply make sure you're starting off on the right foot. So I'm going to start today by going through the call setup process with you and touch on the best practices for online exhibitions along the way. I might go sort of fast through these things as most of them are self-explanatory or don't pertain to online calls as much. So the first step, of course, when you get into CaFÉ is to set up your call by requesting the new call template. And of course, you can go to request new call, and that will open up the call form for you to submit. We're not going to go over everything here, but I do want to just touch on a couple things. First of all, your jury type. So this will help you organize your applications based on what you're looking for. So if you're doing more of a generic online exhibition and you really need to select individual pieces of artwork to display, you're going to want to make sure you choose the scoring by art application jury type. This allows you to assign one score to each individual piece of artwork, therefore each individual image, and allows for best organization for a general exhibition. If you're going to be picking individual artists based on their body of work and then maybe presenting multiple artwork images for a particular artist online, then choose scoring by application. In this scenario, you'll be assigning one score to the entire body of artwork, so all the images an artist submits will be grouped into one application. So whichever one works for you, just make sure you select the right one on the call form, and that will be set up by our staff member accordingly. And then depending on your jury type, I also want to look at the work sample details section. So you'll get to choose if you want to just accept images, audio or video, or a combination of any of them. The images obviously is probably the most straightforward option for online exhibitions, and it's probably the most recommended just to stick with images unless you do plan on accepting audio or video submissions. There's just a couple considerations you'll need to make, one of which is that videos and audio files cannot be downloaded directly bulk from CaFÉ like they can for images. So if you do accept video or audio files, you'll want to reach out to the artists after they're invited and get those files directly from them in order to upload them online. So just keep that in mind when creating your online opportunities. And then whichever one you do accept, you'll enter however many you need to collect from artists. Just keep in mind the capacity of yourself to be able to organize and upload images to a website, and also the capacity of the juror to look at images. So that's pretty self-explanatory of just, accepting the number of images that you're prepared to organize and accept. So you'll just fill in however many that you need. So this is the call form again. I just wanted to touch on those two things. Once you submit the form, a member of our team will set up your call in CaFÉ. So let's hop into CaFÉ here. We've got a little demo online exhibition call to go over today, and let's just go through the call process. So we'll go to the call editor, and we're going to start in the event information tab, and I'm just going to touch on a few things that pertain to online exhibitions and just general best practices for them. So just in general, we found that artists on CaFÉ are kind of getting a little more wary of online exhibitions or opportunities. Artists want to make sure that they're applying to legitimate opportunities and worthwhile opportunities. So this means that if you want an artist application and their entry fee, you've got to convince them that you have an engaging platform and you have a worthwhile chance for them to be featured. So even if you're a new organization or if you have a new website, you're not excused from having nothing to show about yourself. And this all just starts with your internet presence. So with that, I'm going to start in the organization detail section and just kind of address the website here. So the website is the best chance for you to show the artist all that you're about. So you'll want to include your website, but then you'll also want to make sure that the website itself is functioning properly and is engaging to viewers, because artists will go to it and will look at it, and they'll reach out to us if something seems fishy, and we'll give more information. So make sure that that's engaging and has all the information that you want them to see. We'll also talk more about this later, but I just want to make sure that you give more info than you think is necessary to share about who you are and what you do. So you want to start to answer the question for artists, like, what can you do for them and why should they seek out your opportunity? Of course, it goes both ways, but in this scenario, we just want to make sure that artists are given opportunities that they want to apply to, because that will ultimately help you out. The next thing I want to talk about is the call type here. And if you don't already know, we recently added a new online call type to this list. So this list helps categorize the calls in CaFÉ. So when artists are browsing our list of calls, they can find online opportunities in addition to different kinds. So I highly recommend you start using the online call type for online exhibitions. The more people that use this call type, the more artists will be able to find calls under this category when they're searching on the call listings page. So use online to categorize your call as such. The next thing is the call name. So we recommend having the word online, especially as folks are getting used to the new online call type, having the word online or virtual or whatever in the call name itself, so that from the get-go, artists know that your exhibition is online and they know the kind of opportunity you're presenting them. So it's just all about transparency again, making sure that artists know what they're applying to. And the last thing you want is artists thinking that they're going to send in artwork for an in-person exhibition and later find out it's online. Again, that will go into the description itself, but starting with the call name is not a bad idea. The short description is really for capturing the attention of artists on the call listing page. So it's your chance to describe your opportunity in an engaging and friendly way and entice people. So just to demonstrate a little bit, let's go to the I'm going to log in here as an artist so I can pull up this call here. It's under my favorites. So the short description only displays on this page, this call listings page that lists all the calls we have in CaFÉ. So the short description will appear here. And when artists click more info, then they get just your long description. So your short description does not appear on the call details page. You'd want to make sure that any info you put in your short description is copied over into your long description. So that's why in our back end here, you see that we have kind of the same information at the short description than we do the long description, whereas though the long description just kind of expands on the info. So again, short description is for your chance to stand out on that call listings page and really show artists what you're about. This short description, I actually have an exception to the rule that I just said it's only on the call listings page. This is also used to create any promotional e-blasts you send with CaFÉ. We use the short description as a starting point for your e-blast. Of course, you can customize and change that up in that e-blast process itself, but the short description is usually what we pull from first. So the long description is not only your chance to engage with the artist as well and entice them to apply, but include all of the information that they need to know. So you want to be specific about where the exhibition will take place, and in particular for online or virtual exhibitions, you'll want to have that information clear. You'll see in our demo here we have it both on the short and long description to explain. Of course, this is a fake exhibition, but that it will be held virtually on our website, and just some more information about that. The other thing you want to do is make sure you're really explaining to artists what will they get out of participating in your exhibition. So list out any of the benefits you might have for them. That could include general exposure, but you might want to include further details about, how many people are visiting your website, or what kind of traffic do you generate from your page. Maybe artists will also get, a sort of blog post interview or dedicated social media posts. Whatever you choose to do, make sure it's clearly laid out here and kind of enticing for artists to say, "Oh, okay, you have this many followers. That's a pretty good presence. I want to make sure I'm participating in that." You might also choose to disclose how much promotion will be given to the exhibition as a whole, and the details about that. You might also offer prizes. So, of course, you want to list that out so folks know what they have a chance of winning. And so, again, just make sure that's all clear, and that you give captivating examples of what they can get out of this. We also recommend, including some info about if you had a exhibition previously, showing examples of that. Maybe you have, if you're doing like an online publication, maybe you have a different but related kind of example to show them exactly what it will look like online. And that will really help engage with the artists and see, what they have. You need a little bit more than just a web page that says, coming soon, and then a little bit of info. Artists really do want to see like exactly what they're going to get out of applying to your event. The other tip I have here is for the entry fees. Again, you'll want to list out the entry fees that artists must pay when they apply. If you have participation fees, so an additional fee for artists that are invited to participate, definitely include that as well. And you also want to give a little bit more information about what the entry fees are used for. I think in general, call for entries, it's kind of implied that the entry fees are used for administrative purposes or to pay the juror or for whatever it is to put together the exhibition. But artists are getting a little bit more wary of online exhibitions charging entry fees because they possibly could think that it's not as heavy of a lift. And if you do exhibitions online, you know that that's not the case, but you want to make sure that artists know that, and just give even just a couple sentences about what the entry fees go towards, and give them info that will help them, ease their mind. And hopefully you can offer an affordable entry fee as well to kind of entice folks. Overall, you'll just want to be very engaging in your long description. Have really clear sections. In your application requirements, list out everything artists will need to include in the application itself. If you have any tips or presentation guidelines, you can include that. Eligibility criteria can be as short or as long as you need it to be to describe who is eligible to participate. Usually for online exhibitions, I could guess that it might be a little bit more open to location, just based on the fact that folks won't need to travel. So just be really clear and engaging. Avoid using a really dry tone and opt for friendlier and enticing language to keep the reader's attention. And just show your personality as an organization. Who are you and what makes you stand out? You can get creative. You can include testimonials from past exhibiting artists. Maybe you want to have a quote from the juror about what they're looking for. Just think outside the box for ways to really give an artist a good idea of who you are and what this exhibition is about. CaFÉ has over 300 calls right now, which is the most we've ever had. So you really need to figure out how you're going to stand out to these artists. The other thing I want to touch on this page is the legal agreement, or the rules and terms to apply. So you want to list out terms and conditions for not only applying, but maybe some additional policies you have for how the exhibition will be created. So, we have a very basic list here of examples of what you can include. Eligibility, originality of artwork, again, info about the entry fees, and if you have a refund policy. And then again, we'll touch on this later, but you can include some information about image use. So by, for example, you could say by artists submitting their artwork, you grant permission to the gallery to display the images online for promotional and informational purposes. Proper credits will be given, stuff like that. So put that in your legal agreement so that when artists are applying, they have to agree to that, and you know that they have officially agreed to have their artwork displayed online. But we'll talk about other things that you can do with image use. So make sure you include that in your legal agreement. And I also just recommend not muddying up your legal agreement too much, making it nice and easy to read so folks know what they're agreeing to. Moving on, we don't have much else to touch on for the event information tab. The important dates and additional settings are pretty self-explanatory. So this just gives you a chance to outline all of the dates and kind of set up your deadline and everything like that. I also just want to mention to double check and triple check your jury type. So we have, general explanation of the jury types that I explained before. So just make sure that this is set to the jury type that you requested. And if it's not, or if you decided you need to change your jury type, please reach out to us at our email here so that we can change it before you publish your call. Once you start accepting applications, we can't actually change the jury type, and it causes a couple problems here and there sometimes. So you want to make sure that you check to make sure that this is correct because it overall dictates how images are handled in CaFÉ. Moving on, we'll go to the application editor page and touch on a few things. The work sample requirements section, again, just like the jury type, you'll want to make sure that this is correct and matches what you requested on the form and matches what you actually need. So again, just double check these things. And if you need to make any changes, let the CaFÉ team know before you publish. So nothing really to touch on there that I didn't already talk about with images or work samples, but that is there for you to check. Submission categories, up to you if you want to use them. They basically just categorize the applications into certain categories that the applicant chooses on their form and allows you to organize a little bit better. The artist statement option is something to pay attention to if you plan on using artist statements for your online exhibition. So let's say the final result will have the artist's image, their info, and their artist statement. One thing, because artist statements are pretty standard among calls for entry, for a specific use like this, you might want to give additional instructions to really tell the artist what you're looking for, because people use artist statements differently. So you'll want to outline some additional instructions. If you don't put anything in this text box, the question on the application will simply say, enter your artist statement. So you might want to give some more direction. You might also want to say whether the artist statement will display next to the work if selected for the exhibition. So give them that ahead of time so they know, oh, what I'm putting in here is exactly what's going to go online, and you don't want them to be confused about that. So you can describe if you want them to submit more info about the materials and technique they used. Maybe you want their take on the exhibition's theme. Oh, this was cut off a little bit. Exhibition's theme. Or if you do want some more of an artist biography or resume of sorts, you can include that direction there too. I do have the preview of the application here, and you'll see that the artist statement, the additional instructions just displays right in the question there. For the form questions, this is really your chance to gather all of the materials you will need from artists in order to create your exhibition. So there's no need to kind of do a separate process after the invitations go out. Why not just collect all this information ahead of time so that you can get that ready to go? The exception is you don't need to collect information that I'm going to put up on the screen here. This is an overview of all the information collected in CaFÉ before an artist even reaches your application. So in their CaFÉ profile, they will put in their artist name, city, state, website, contact email, and list of team or partner names. For each individual piece of artwork, they will submit their title, medium, dimensions, whether or not it's for sale, and if it is for sale, the price or value of the piece, the year created, whether it's a piece that's currently being displayed as a public art piece, so whether it's currently takes place in the public, or and the description. So all this information is already collected, so you don't need to ask for this on your application. All this info will transfer over to the artist application that they submit. So asking for it would just kind of duplicate that information. It might even confuse the artist or juror if some info doesn't even match up from one side to the other. There is one exception to that I'll talk about, but on the application form, you'll want to use this for collecting additional materials that you'll need for the exhibition. For example, social media, if you want to put the social media handles of the artists, we don't yet have that built into CaFÉ, so you'll want to ask for that in a separate question. That one exception I mentioned was for the website. So even though artists can put a website in their profile, sometimes they forget to update it, or they don't realize when they create their account, maybe they don't have one and they didn't go back and add it. So if you really want an artist website for your exhibition, make sure you ask that, and you can say, if you don't already have the website attached to your profile, enter it here. You can also do things like ask for a headshot. So you could build a file upload question. And this could allow the artist just to submit a small file of their headshot that could be displayed alongside their artwork online. Just note that when an artist uploads a file to this kind of question, which is separate from the work samples, we don't yet have a bulk option to download all of these files at once. So you'd have to go in individually and download their headshot. But we do have a bulk download feature coming soon. It's just not yet ready. So just keep that in mind. You can also do some other things, questions about how they heard about the exhibition. If you need to track like how well your advertisement and promotion for the call is going, you can insert kind of different questions for them to answer how they heard about you. You could also have a little separate agreement from your main legal agreement if you really, really, really want to reiterate to artists that their images will be used for digital use online. So you can put in an additional question to ask them to basically opt into that use. And that's just kind of another way to ensure that they're agreeing to it. So you can create a question like that. You can ask questions to them for them to submit their photographer credit. So if you need to give proper credit to the image itself online, ask for the photographer of the piece of the image. You can go really further. We'll talk about accessibility in the next section, but you can ask for them to provide a visual description of their artwork for use in alternative text online. So alternative text would display on screen readers, or if people that need assistance viewing photos online, you can ask the artist to create their own alt text, and that just takes that burden away from you. And I'm just now kind of listing off things that I've seen in the past, but one other thing that I've seen is for people to either categorize with categories or a question, like a checkbox question that asks people to categorize their artwork with certain subjects or themes. So I've seen it where it's been a big list of checkboxes where they will ask for, the artist to categorize like themes of like landscape or portrait or abstract or still life, whatever it is. And they actually use those when they collect that information to categorize the artwork on their online exhibition. And then when people visit their online exhibition, they can sort and filter the artwork by these certain tags, so to speak, of these different categories. So if they're just looking for landscape artwork, they can filter for that. So that's a really neat advanced way of getting more information about the artwork and using that to further filter your exhibition and make a good kind of buyer browsing experience. So all those things are ways that you can collect additional materials from artists that you can use when you're ready to assemble your exhibition. The last thing I'll mention here is that the informational only question type is a really good way to reiterate your media requirements. So you can have things like, just reiterating that you can upload, 1 to 4 images, don't submit duplicates, whatever that might be. You can include a reminder to ask folks to check that their price listed on their artwork in their portfolio. Like I said, it's collected from the CaFÉ system. So you could have them double check that their price on the artwork image they're submitting is correct because it'll be used online. You might also recommend that they submit high resolution images for the artwork and reiterate the size requirements. CaFÉ does include the size requirements on the portfolio page when they upload their work, but you can also say that, CaFÉ does accept pretty much images of any size so long as they're larger than 1200 pixels. So 1200 pixels on the longest edge is the minimum, but they can submit, as long as the file size is below 5 megabytes, which is pretty large, they can submit an image as large as they need to get the best presentation of their artwork in the jury. But again, we're going to touch on image use and high resolution images in our next section. So media requirements, informational only. What this displays as informational only simply just shows up on the application without, a question and answer. It's just information that appears on the page. And I've ordered it in this scenario to include it right above the work sample section so that they see it right before they get to that step. So that's the application editor, and that's all we really want to go over for the call setup process. The product editor is pretty self-explanatory, pretty similar to any other exhibition or opportunity. You'll just want to make sure everything is correct on that product editor so that people can pay the right amount. The next thing I want to talk about is after the application process and after the jury process, gathering the materials. So let's go to the events management section. And we're going to assume now that we've jumped ahead in the process and now we've invited certain artists to participate in this online exhibition. And I've got them here under the invited status. So when you're ready to start assembling your exhibition, you're going to want to download some information so that you can transfer it over to your site. So the reports are going to be really helpful for you here because not only can you click on the application and ID number and get to the application here to view what they submitted, you're going to want to download this information in bulk. So you're going to use the reports that we have available up here. I'm just going to give an overview of what each report does, and obviously you can use that however you need to use it. So the contact information report, this one might not be as relevant for you, but this will allow you to download all the contact information, including the artist's name, address, email. I think it includes the website as well, just info about the artists. The application answers report gives the artist's name, of course, and some basic info, I think their email. And it also includes the answers to the application questions that you build. So all those answers will come in a spreadsheet format in this report, and you can use that to pull that text directly. So that's where you might want to pull their social media handles, definitely pull their artist statement from here if you're using that. Any of the questions you created, gather those here. The media information spreadsheet will give you the info about the individual pieces of artwork. So it'll include the artist's name so you can have that reference, but it lists out, the artwork title, dimensions, size is dimensions, price, those in description, those things that I listed out that CaFÉ collects. So it'll include all that info that you can pull to create, the little labels for the images that you'll use online. So those are the spreadsheet form reports that we have. We also have a couple different PDF reports. The applications PDF, which I can show you here, will just kind of list out one application per page. It's very much similar to the CaFÉ view of the application that I showed before, but it gives it to you in, one application per page. It might not be as useful for you for an online exhibition, but it's there and if you need it. The other PDF that you have available is the media inventory list. This one as well, because it's not as easy for spreadsheets to, pull information. What this could be helpful for is a final check of your exhibition online. So maybe you pull this and you want to check that you've transferred all the information over. You can use this to verify the artwork image with its information. So all those media information details. And so those are the reports. Once you have the reports, that's good for all the information. When you need to download the media, the images, you will go to the ticket tab and you'll request a download of the high resolution images. So in the issue section here, you'll want to choose image request and you'll put in the information about your, which event you're doing it for and put in your info. In the message, what will be helpful is if you include in your message to the CaFÉ team, you can say, we would like the images for this call, all from the invited status. So let us know what status you need it from. If you just need it from the invited status to gather those images that you're going to put online. And also let us know if you'd like the artist's last name included in the file name of the image. So we have the ability to download it without the artist's name in the file. That could be used more for like jurying purposes to keep it anonymous. But if you need those names, especially if you need those names to be able to organize your artwork for your online exhibition, be sure to tell us that you want the image or the artist names included. So you'll just kind of, fill out this information, click send, and that will send us a direct email to our inbox. And a member of the CaFÉ team will generate the download of those images and send them to you. Again, we can only download the images. So if you're collecting audio or video files, we don't have the ability to bulk download those just yet. So you'll have to work with individual artists to get those files directly from them if you're going to be using them for your online opportunity. So once you request those images, we'll send you a link. Basically, it's a link that once you click it, will start downloading it immediately onto your computer. That link can be clicked 3 times. So you'll want to make sure, you're only sharing that link with people that actually need those images. The images in the file itself will be categorized by category if you have them set up. So if you have, a 2D category and a 3D category, they'll be in separate folders within the download. And then it will also be ordered by either artist last name or application ID. So it'll order them a certain way. I already told you that we are working on a bulk download option for file upload. So if you're collecting artist headshots via a application question, you'll have to go in those individually. And to do that, you would just go into their, I don't think we have it set up for this call, but you would go into their application and under the form answers, which this one doesn't have anything on there, likely this application was submitted before we created the questions, it would be here and you would just download the file. So that's how you gather the materials for your online exhibition. And again, if you are asking for enough information ahead of time, you'll be able to download that info and have it all ready to go so you can start creating your exhibition. The last thing I want to talk about today is just some general tips and best practices for putting together the exhibition itself. Again, a lot of these are just kind of general reminders and things for you to consider. We at CaFÉ just want to ensure that your process goes smoothly and that your final result looks and is something that you can be proud of and that artists can find a worthwhile opportunity from. So these are just general reminders and tips. You don't have to stick to them. And of course, we're here to help with the call for entry process itself, but we want to provide additional information too. The first tip we have is to make sure that your exhibition is engaging, interactive, and visually pleasing. Kind of goes without saying, but again, just like having a good website to have an engaging presence online, you'll just want to make sure the exhibition itself is something that people want to go to. So organize your images well, provide consistent info about each artist and artwork, use colors on the page that allow the artwork to stand out. You can make it interactive, allowing the visitors to click on images to view them larger, include links to the artist's websites and social media handles, things like that to really round out the exhibition experience. Next, make sure your exhibition is easy to find on your website. You'll be surprised, however many people we try to help artists find exhibitions after they've been invited and included on them, and they weren't communicated to, or maybe they didn't get the email from the artist, from the organization about where they can find their artwork on their website, and we find out that it's really hidden on their website. And that's not going to help your website traffic, so you'll want to make sure it's easy to find. The next thing is to consider accessibility standards. So this is something that CaFÉ and Westaff as a whole are still learning about and still trying to implement on our own websites. But there are a lot of things that you need to start consider for making sure your online space is inclusive for people with disabilities. So I'm actually going to insert two links into the chat that I will also include on the recording of this webinar. So these are just two online resources to get you started. I will show you one of them, which is so this is the Web Accessibility Initiative, and it lists all of the things that you need to consider when making your websites accessible. I'm not going to go into these things, but these are just resources to help you understand what changes you can make to make your site more accessible. The basic things are things like text alternatives, so things that you can make it easy to read, so including icons, buttons that are really easy to find, having captions for multimedia and alternative text like we talked about, so that people who use screen readers can visit and engage with your website. Also having things like high contrast colors is really important so that the information can be easily read. When you have like a really dark background and dark text, that's not going to be high contrast. So you want to make sure that you have things that are easy to read onto your website. So those links that I provided are just additional places to come and just view what you can do to make your website more accessible. The next thing that we have is making sure you're promoting the exhibition. So follow through with what you told the artist. If you said that you were going to be actively promoting the exhibition for a certain number of time, for a certain number of weeks, continue doing that. If you're going to post social media posts about individual artists to feature them, or if you're going to include blog posts, follow through with those things. And ultimately, you'll want people to engage with your exhibition just as much as the artists want people to come and view their work. So just make sure you're following through with that. Oh, and that's kind of what I gave there. So follow through on what you offer to artists. The next tip is to follow best practices for using artist images online. So this is something that is becoming a little bit more of a hot topic these days, especially when artists and the use of AI images are becoming more prevalent, artificially generated images. Artists are a little bit more protective of their artwork, which is understandable. So when you're using artist images online, you'll want to consider the risks of copyright infringement, creative license protections, and general online safety concerns. So I showed you how to request a download of the high resolution images, and high resolution just means the full size that the artist uploaded to CaFÉ, and that might be a pretty big, pretty high resolution image that they submit. That being said, high resolution images are easier to download and reproduce without permission. This could potentially lead to copyright infringements and individuals using images and downloading them for commercial purposes or claim them as their own work, which would infringe upon the rights of the original artist. Artists retain certain rights over their work, including the ability to control how it's reproduced and distributed. So even though they're allowing you the permission to use their images online, posting those high-resolution versions could increase the likelihood of unauthorized use that may violate the terms of the artist's creative license. So just because those high-resolution images are more susceptible to being stolen or used by malicious actors, you'll want to just really consider those use of high-resolution full-size images. That said, we know you want to create a good-looking exhibition, so there's a couple things you can do to safeguard yourself against some of these things. So even though we provide those full-size images, you might consider sizing the images down. Lower size versions of images are less suitable for printing and commercial purposes, so it could discourage unauthorized use. So you would have to go through and, bulk resize these images, but that could be one way. Not as commonly used, but another thing you could do is watermark the images, adding something that can deter unauthorized use, even if it's small and in the corner, to make it so that it's kind of shown that it's a copyright image. You can embed metadata, including copyright info and licensing terms, in the file of the image itself. This could help protect the artist's rights if someone were to download it. Of course, it would, get to the end before that would be something that's applicable, but you would want to include that anyway. So that's something, if you know how to do, you can do that. You can also restrict access to the images on your website. So depending on how advanced your site is, or you could require, well, if you have the ability, you can limit the access to that full-size image, or you can also require users to register or log in to an account onto your website before viewing the exhibition. That could help prevent unauthorized distribution. Finally, I think the easiest tip I have for this is to clearly outline terms of use for the images on the exhibition itself. So including some type of disclaimer saying that images may not be reproduced or distributed, and having that information on your website. It's not going to prevent someone that wants to use it maliciously, but it will help safeguard you and the artist if something were to happen and you need to show that, unauthorized use was clearly outlined. And then again, just make sure you're giving proper credit to the artist and the photographer on the website itself so that the artist info is properly associated. So those are some things for just best practices for image use online. It's a work in progress, being able to determine the best way to safeguard artists' rights and copyright, but just do what you can to minimize these threats. The last thing I have here is to just communicate with artists regularly. Not only should you let them know how the process is going for during and putting together exhibition, again, sharing that link to them so that they can share that with their network and help promote the exhibition itself. If anything were to happen, or if you need more info from artists, just communicate them with them regularly. In CaFÉ, as you know, you can use the events communication tool to send a message to an entire status of artists at a certain time. So you can, just communicate with them. This is one where you would be sending a one-way email communication, and then they can respond to you individually, and that would go to your, external email provider. You can also send an individual message if you just need to communicate one thing to an artist, or if you want them to address something in their application. In order to do that, I skipped through that, but in order to do it, you can go to the batch of artists that you need, click on their application ID number. That would take you to the application page, and all you have to do is click on the email for the artist. So their email will be listed, you click on it, and it will take you to this form, and that allows you to send an email just to that individual artist. Again, it would be a one-way communication, so if they were to reply, they would reply to the reply to email that you provided. This concludes our webinar on best practices for using CaFÉ to host your online exhibitions. I hope you learned something useful. If you have more in-depth questions about your specific call, please just email us at cafehelp@westaff.org. Thanks again for joining us, and be sure to join our next webinar next month.